What is up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're here for the Singapore Grand Prix. As fate would have it, we're releasing this episode of Career Mode on the exact same day as the real-life Singapore Grand Prix, or at least I hope so. It's currently 6 PM and I'm running out of time in the day to get this video out there, but hopefully this does end up coming out on the Sunday. Let's talk about today's race, shall we? Pretty interesting one with the Ferrari strategy. Hopefully my boys today can maybe get the leg up on me over my teammate Kimi Räikkönen, who has had some unbelievable form as of late. Heading into the Singapore Grand Prix, we have a ultimate rear downforce upgrade applied to the car. We also have a major brake upgrade, which has made its way onto the car as well for this race, which has seen us leap into that top 3 mix at the front of the grid. So now there are no excuses. We ultimately should have the package to match it with Alfa Romeo, with Haas. Our brake package still leaves a little bit to be desired, as we still have an ultimate upgrade to come that way, but you would imagine that we should be able to contest, or at least be in the mix with those guys from here on in, so we'll see how it goes. But practice was a little bit interesting. Rain was playing a factor, as it always does. I set a time earlier on while it was raining.
Are you okay?
Have a bit of a moment there, just after the rain is cleared away. The track was still somewhat damp, and this was a used set of tyres, but I was pushing on to get a representative qualifying practice time in, heading into the rest of the weekend to get a gauge on setup, but we just got hurt with a bout of wheel spin, and that was the end of our session, unfortunately. I've seen a lot of people in the comments saying, you know, over the course of my qualifying laps, why aren't I using hot lap mode all around the racetrack? And that's because the Ferrari actually has a lot of wheel spin, and that is evident right there. I actually have to turn down the battery to manage that low-end torque that the battery gives. There's just so much power in this car now, it is a little bit hard to control at times. So that is half of the reason why, and the other half is you can't run in hot lap all the way around the lap, otherwise you'll start to actually run out of your battery capacity. You only have a limited amount to use over the course of the lap. Even though it says your total battery is fine, you only have a certain allocation to use over the course of the lap. So yeah, that's why I know what I'm doing. I'm putting it down into lower battery modes to actually make the car faster, because you get smoother power delivery sometimes. But anyway, that was practice. We got a decent bout of resource points up our sleeve, which should see us potentially maxing out this car in the next couple of rounds, so we'll see how that goes. But heading into qualifying, I feel like the package is there. We just need to string together a good lap.
It's time for us to settle down and the drivers below to get fired up. Once again, welcome to Singapore as we get ready for the green light and the start of what should be a fantastic qualifying session.
So let's see what we can manage in this Singapore Grand Prix. Let's see if we can put it on pole like Charles Leclerc did in yesterday's qualifying session. We certainly have the package now to kind of dominate the sport, much like Ferrari has been in real life, so we'll see what we can do. Still running with last year's setup, one which we actually struggled for tyre temps in a little bit. Wasn't actually struggling for tyre temps, I won't lie, in the one lap running that I was doing. So hopefully the Ferrari is somewhat better than what the Renault was in that regard, but I'm going to hold my breath until after we get through this qualifying session. But running ultra high downforce, 10-11 wings to get us around the circuit, and with the ultimate downforce upgrades we've applied recently, this car feels night and day different to what it did back in Spa, when we were running a low downforce setup, when we had much less downforce on the car. It was yeah, a much different beast, but now we can kind of easily get through these qualifying sessions. There's no real need to show the opening parts of qualifying unless there's a problem, which there wasn't. We get through qualifying 2 there. Much better lap, 131.3. That's a lot more representative of what we can do. Raikkonen only 3 tenths behind me, 4 tenths behind me, rather, and he's down in P9. So narrowly avoiding getting knocked out in Q2 was Raikkonen, if you look at it positional-wise, but I think there was a clear margin from his actual time that he set versus the guy in P11. There's starting to be a bit of a big void between the top teams and the midfield, you would say, at this stage. But here we are for qualifying 3. We open the account with another 131 0.2, which puts us on provisional pole for the moment. Lucas Weber briefly went into P2, but the order has changed somewhat as we return back out on the circuit. Hamilton now leads best of the rest over Devon Butler, but this is now our final lap in qualifying, really pushing the track limits there at turn 1. I was actually lucky to get away with that. Strict corner cutting rules are applied, but it is our job to get the most out of the circuit and drive as fast as we can. We're a 10th up as we go through the first sector split now. Qualifying is now complete. That's a purple sector 1, just 1/10 clear of Lewis Hamilton. Sectors 2 and 3 is where the AI are strong, particularly sector 3. They've been the best part of 2 or 3 tenths clear of me, but hopefully on this lap it can be a much more complete one. We know that the AI are coming across the line now to set their times, and no one really is displacing us despite a Williams, a Haas coming across the line. The Alphas are now crossing the line. Weber goes P3, but nothing that is going to dislodge us from pole position. A Haas crosses the line. I think we've got pole now. It's just a case of just pushing on and completing this lap. I wasn't actually looking at what everyone else was doing on the mini-map. I have the beauty of doing that in post-commentary. But me driving this lap at the time, all I was focused on was getting this lap in and getting the absolute most out of it. You can see we're doing so. 4 tenths up as we go through the third sector now. It feels absolutely hooked up through here. This looks clearly like my best sector 3 I put together all weekend through the final corner. And it will be pole position for the Singapore Grand Prix. It's a 1 minute 30.8. So we've broken into the 90-second barrier at this racetrack, which has never been done before. That is incredible pace. That was a bit of a wonder lap from us there. 9 tenths clear of Lewis Hamilton. The AI have gone slower in Q3 than what they did in Q2. So that really elongates the margin outside of what it really should have been. The AI were doing low 31s, like really low 31s, and we only just break into the 1 minute 30. So I was expecting the AI to improve their pace, step up the engine modes like they normally do. Like Monza was a huge step up for the AI last round, but this time out they go backwards, which is very, very odd. Very inconsistent are the AI from track to track, and looks like we've got the measure on them so far. So heading into the race, confidence is high.
Well done. That was a good qualifying performance.
Hello and welcome one and all to the shining streets of Singapore. Can you believe we've been coming here for nearly a decade now? It feels like only yesterday that Felipe Massa was dragging his fuel hose down the pit lane in that eventful opening race, and in a Grand Prix won from pole position more often than not. Will we see a new victor crowned today? Anthony Davidson, thanks for joining me once again for the Grand Prix. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? There's a new gearbox in the back of that car, which means a grid penalty, and hopefully some excitement as they make their way through the field.
Well, at the end of the day, it's always better to take some pain now than parking it up halfway through the Grand Prix. Let's just hope they can put that new gearbox to good use and get the results they're looking for.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Day lines up on pole position and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Butler, Hülkenberg, Sebastian Vettel and Raikkonen, Leclerc, Perez, Ricciardo and Lando Norris. Verstappen, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Weber, Kevin Magnussen and Sainz, Bottas, Gasly, George Russell and Lance Stroll. Albon and Daniel Kvyat completes the grid, and with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
You've done well to put it on pole, but we've still got work to do. Trying to cover the inside line off the start.
Thank you for that piece of driving advice, Mr. Jeffrey. But here we are for the Singapore Grand Prix. Today is a big round for us. There's potential for us to get some monumental points over Lucas Weber in the championship order. He's starting outside the top 10. So too is Max Verstappen. Although he's not really in the championship fight, but I'm hoping that he can get in the mix with Weber and slow him up somewhat. But that German is oh so consistent and equally as fast. I'd imagine that he'll make his way through the grid very, very quickly. Anyway, the Singapore Grand Prix. We're going to switch to a one-stop. We know that the tyre wear is a lot better than what the game says it is, so we should be able to get away with this one with a bit of tyre management. 5 red lights, and it's away we go for the Singapore Grand Prix, and for once it looks like a decent start right when we needed one, but it looks like we're going to hold the lead as we go through turn 1. Devin Butler getting in the mix there with Hamilton on the runs through turns 2 and 3, but Hamilton has the ascendancy over the rest of the field. But we're looking to check out in this race if we can. We've underfueled the car massively because there's no real need to stress the engine too much and the tyres. The strategy I'm going for today is tyre conservation. We are going for the one-stop. We know that the Ferrari is very forgiving on its fuel burn, so it makes sense to underfuel the car, run in lean revs a lot, and that way we're dulling the wheel spin and looking after the tyres. Just overall having a faster car, because if you've got a lighter car, it can give you a few tenths per lap, especially at a circuit like this. And the reason why we're conserving the tyres so much is not because of tyre wear. The tyre deg is actually surprisingly low around Singapore relative to real life. It's the tyre temperatures which we need to worry about. If they get outside of the tolerances of like 105 degrees, that's when we start to see some real troubles with pace, because the car will just be sliding around everywhere, and then the tyre wear will get out of hand. But so far, we're managing the pace quite well. 1 minute 36.1 to open the account for us. I think if you were looking at real life, the F1 cars were like 12 seconds slower, but we have much, much faster cars on hand for us today. We've got 3 seasons worth of development, and it makes a big difference around a track like this. But the tyre deg, speaking of it, is relatively strong.
Hamilton behind. The gap behind us is 2.6 seconds. They're on old softs. Their tyres are 3 laps old. We think they've got 2 stops remaining. The time last lap was a 1:37.5.
37.5. When you compare that to my fastest lap, it looks quite slow, but we'll cross the line now, and you'll see that my next lap is actually slower than Hamilton's last lap. But I was going to say the tyre deg isn't really that high when you look at the raw numbers on your tyre wear percentage scale. But when you look at the lap time on circuit, it really knocks around the pace, at least on the softs. They're not really good for too many flying laps, and we're already into conservative mode, much like in today's Grand Prix. I'm making a lot of comparisons because, yes, I watched that race today, but in terms of me filming this, I filmed this on the qualifying day of Singapore, so yesterday. But anyway, gap is seesawing between myself and Hamilton around about 2 seconds, team radio.
Expect to see some rain about 10 to 15 minutes from now.
Oh yes, and that's another thing which I was factoring into my strategy, was the fact that rain was scheduled to be in the final quadrant of the Grand Prix, and looks like it's heading our way a lot sooner than anticipated. But Hamilton is in, Vettel is in as well. I think Charles Leclerc has dived it in for the Williams too, and we're one of the only ones who is sticking it out here on the soft compound tyres, trying to do the overcut. I didn't want to emerge in traffic, and so I've just done the extra lap. I have the margin, and hopefully this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass like it did for a certain Ferrari driver today. I did push a little bit more on this lap and use the rest of the tyre, but we should be fine, I think, onto the mediums, and we should be able to go to the end of this race if you exclude the rain. But this set of tyres will easily get us through until the rain period. We emerge in P3. Magnussen comes out in P2. He's still yet to make his stop. He started on the mediums, and I think Lando Norris leads the way in the McLaren on the mediums as well. So I think the medium tyre runners who started this race are going to be in a good position later on, especially if they can hold out until the rain hits. They might see themselves fighting for podiums, at least in Lando Norris's case. So I think it'll be imperative for me to now bridge that gap between myself and Norris, and just make sure that he can't get some kind of advantage out of this as we go around the outside of Magnussen. Pretty easy work there. He's in a much... the Force India, the Racing Point, is you're on backmarker car in this career mode series, and with old tyres on, we've got much more grip than what he does. Next up is Lando, and we're lapping about a second or two per lap, maybe even more faster than what he is at the moment. 1:35.6. We cut the gap down to 4 seconds to Lando Norris.
We may see some rain. ETA is about 15 minutes.
Still, the delta for when the rain is supposed to be hitting is not getting here any sooner, which is interesting. We may see more pit stops potentially, maybe for Hamilton, if his tyre wear isn't too good between now and the next batch of rain. Given that he did dive it in relatively early for his medium tyres. We shall see how this one plays out, but we've already cut the gap down to Norris in what has only been a couple of laps. We go up the inside now into the last corner. We make the most of our fresh tyres and faster car. We head up the inside into turn 1 and we get the move done. There was a slight corner cut there, but the game has not picked up on it. So it looks like the track limits at turn 1 are a bit lenient here in Singapore. But the reason why I was kind of aiming for the apex at turn 1 was really just to leave more space for Lando on the outside. But as you can see by the replay there, he was nowhere near me. So I guess I didn't need to worry about that in the end. But we've taken the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix. Once again, Hamilton resumes in P2. Magnussen still holding on to third. So it looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race for the victory today. Even still, like, Hamilton is a long way behind me. He's the best part of, I'd say, 10 seconds back now. So the consistency that we're showing on these tyres is amazing. As we set another fastest lap of the Grand Prix. We're just running away with this Grand Prix in dry conditions. I really hope that the car can work just as well as what it is now in changeable conditions. Hopefully it should be fine. We are running with a high brake pressure, which may make things interesting. Tyre wear is non-existent. It's only in the teens for the mediums, so these will easily go to the end. But yeah, oh, Hamilton's in. Hamilton is in for a second stop in this Singapore Grand Prix. My tyre wear is non-existent, and Hamilton is already deciding to get off his medium tyres, but it looks like it's come at the absolute worst time because now rain is starting to fall literally 60 seconds after Hamilton has made his stop. Vettel moves into P2 in this race. Raikkonen.
Let's be mindful of the conditions. The track is getting wetter. Recommend you stay out for now though. We'll be much slower if we move on to Inters this early.
That we will. Raikkonen assumes P3, and if the tyre wear for Ferrari can hold out well, it could be a Ferrari 1-2 if Vettel dives it in slightly early before making the switch to intermediate tyres. It is coming, just a case of when. 11 laps left to go in this race. I just don't know if the rain is going to be heavy or if it's going to stick around for too long. It was only supposed to be for one quadrant of the Grand Prix, so it could only be a very short spell of rain, but it is starting to wreak havoc now on this circuit now as it's getting very greasy, and Hamilton is in again. So you would have to say that this is for intermediate tyres. There's no way he is going to switch on to another set of dries. He's switched to hards. Why would you switch to hards just before going onto wet tyres? But we've gone wide at the hairpin, and we've lost our front wing. We've lost our front wing. We've gone deep. We just, there's no grip at that corner. I locked up the inside front tyre, and it just had no grip. It carted me into the barrier. A really clumsy, slow-speed crash. I just exited out of the menus after looking at what Hamilton was doing in the pit lane. Maybe not up to speed, I suppose, or up to my usual rhythm. And now we're going to come in this lap and put in the intermediate tyres. We've gone wide again. Up the escape road. That one is probably because of the lack of front wing, and it's just a comedy of errors. Thankfully, we had a 20-second lead over Sebastian Vettel. We just knocked off the rest of our front wing, so that's lovely. I think our rear tyres were overheating as well. It just makes no sense as to what is happening now in this Singapore Grand Prix. It's all going a bit tits up at this stage. 9 laps left, and we just need to cruise it back to the pit lane, which we have done. A front wing change, and Sebastian Vettel is literally right there. So hopefully the boys can get me out in front of him, which looks like they have done. Onto the intermediate tyres, and our gap of 20 plus seconds by virtue of, I don't know, the rest of the field getting held up and battling, and then Hamilton's strategic errors has given me this huge lead, and then I've only just gone and thrown it away in a matter of 5 laps or less. But there we go. That has been this race in a nutshell. We now rejoin on the circuit on the intermediate tyres. The track doesn't look that wet now that we're on the intermediate tyre, so it's going to be a case of, again, looking after these tyres and making sure that they don't overheat, because this is only going to be a short spell on these tyres. I would imagine that we're going to go back to dries to finish off this race, so we're going to have to curate these tyres as much as we can, all the while keeping Vettel behind us. That margin that we had is just evaporated to nothing. It would have been a lot nicer if I had that 20-second lead still, because I'd be able to drive around like a grandma and not worry about it. But now we need to keep the sight set on the Haas driver right behind and make sure he doesn't get ahead. But yeah, it's tricky at the moment. The tyres are overheating on the rears. The fronts, they're not really doing anything. There's no real grip. There's no purchase. And so I'm running wide a lot, wheel spinning a lot. I'm doing the absolute maximum I can to look after these tyres, but it's just not quite working out. And I think this is as wet as the track is going to get. I think it's actually starting to, well, I think the rain is going to stop very soon, so it's only going to get worse for these tyres. So I'm hoping that we can make the switch very, very quickly as the virtual safety car now is deployed. It's for my teammate Raikkonen, who was running in 3rd place at one stage in this Singapore Grand Prix. He is now out after mechanical failure. Gets overtaken by Hamilton, gets overtaken by Devon Butler, and that is a real missed opportunity because we were set for some great points here today in Singapore. The Alphas are having a bit of a mixed day. Lucas Weber is still outside of the points, I think, at this stage. I think he's also having a bit of a mare with race strategy. But we're getting ready to go again with the VSC. The Delta has been flying around all over the place.
It's too low and we risk a penalty. Slow your pace immediately.
I don't know. 1 second I was having to let the Delta go by like a second. Other times, I don't know. It was just a real roller coaster having to manage that. But we gave up about 3 seconds, unfortunately. But at least we don't get a penalty out of that. Vettel had a nice run on us on the back straight, but we managed to hold on. Here's a little running look at everyone down the order a little bit, down in the top 10. You can see Lucas Weber is knocking on the door of some points, but he's not quite there yet and trapped behind a Mercedes. But anyway, for us, 4 laps left to go in this race. We're running out of time. Oh, actually, here comes Sebastian Vettel for the lead of the Grand Prix. He gets an amazing run on the back straight, and he takes the lead with only a matter of 4 laps to go. So we are running out of time for the conditions to change for us to get back on the dry tyres. But Sebastian has taken the lead because I just got a poor run out of the medium speed right-hander onto the straight. And I don't know what it was. There was no DRS, but he just had a burst of acceleration, and he was able to fly past us like we were standing still. So now we are in trouble in this Singapore Grand Prix. There was 2 and a bit laps left to go in this race, and we are struggling for our tyres. We're now having to stretch beyond what they would want at this phase of the Grand Prix, and in these conditions I'm really just giving it everything now to try and stay with Vettel. He was pressuring me for a long time, and I feel like we do have equal pace, but now the ball is in my court. I have to be the aggressor and push that little bit more, probably beyond the comforts of what these tyres want, but it's something we have to do regardless. But the track is looking rather dry now on lap 29. I'm just sliding around everywhere. I think this might be a lost cause, so you know what? I'm going to dive it in for some dry tyres and be the aggressor here to try and win this race. I think if we stuck it out on the intermediate tyres until the end of the Grand Prix, I actually don't think we were going to win that race, win the race in that manner, because Vettel just had it covered in managing the tyre temps. So I feel like this is the way forward. The DRS has been enabled once again, so it looks like it is time for a switch back to dry tyres. It's just now a matter of whether Vettel wants to blink and play it safe and switch to the dries. If he does so, he'll probably give up the lead. So I feel like for Vettel now, the play is to just stick it out on intermediate tyres and just crawl to the finish like Malaysia F1 2013 career mode all those years ago. He has stuck it out as we head on to the last lap of the Singapore Grand Prix. It is going to be the AI on intermediate tyres versus myself on the soft compound tyres. Use softs on a dry track. Let's see if we can win this race. It's looking fairly unlikely, as the AI are really keeping an awesome pace on these tyres. They're not really falling back towards me like I hoped they would, but we are catching up to Devon Butler, and this is for a podium now. So let's see if we can get past him and onto the podium. That is P3, just superior traction there. He gets an amazing bout of straight line speed there on the back straight, which is odd. We are running with really high downforce today, so maybe that is what has kind of undone our race and allowed Vettel to soar past us on the straight. But he wins the Singapore Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton is going to get P2. And for us, we really did throw away this race win. Only third place.
Great drive, great drive. We're really happy with that performance.
I'm not.
Haas pulling out all the stops today. A great win. Talk to me, Ants. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection, a shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
The quality and fantastic result of the Haas team will have been noticed by everyone else out there today. You can see why everyone's taking them so seriously. These drivers will be hot property by the end of the season.
So just like real life, Sebastian Vettel comes out of the woodwork and wins the Singapore Grand Prix. Fair play to him. He was in the right place at the right time. Was very decisive with that move and getting it done. I had no response. His straight line speed was just impeccable, and I wasn't able to outbrake him. He was able to withstand the pressure that I applied after he got the lead, and he held strong. But for us, I feel like that could have been so much more. We really did throw that one away. There was no need for me to push as much as I did, given the lead that I have, or had at that stage. 20 seconds was the lead, and yeah, unnecessary. But the conditions really just took a downward spiral as soon as the rain hit, and it did catch me out. But there we go, that has been the Singapore Grand Prix. Lucas Weber doesn't get any points from today's Grand Prix. He finished P11, so we gained 16 on him today in the championship. We cut the gap down to 49 points in the standings. The constructors, it's really hard to make any inroads because the other two teams are very consistent. Raikkonen DNF today, so we didn't really pick up the gains that I hoped we would, but it looks like the focus for this season anyway is going to be on the driver's title. Yeah, it is. I feel like for me it's very hard to win a constructor's title in career mode. We really have to have a dominant car, like the Sauber that we had on F1 2018 Season 2. But who knows, next season we might be there. I have to partner up with Weber in order to have a really solid teammate. But yeah, that's the end of the weekend. At least we have some pace, that we know for sure. We now have a package which is capable of taking it to the top teams in Formula 1 now. We were very dominant in the dry. We managed the strategy well. I managed the tyres well. The strategy was on point, doing the one stop. Yeah, I just threw it away, really, with those two incidents on that lap where we were on our way to the pit lane for intermediate tyres. In terms of upgrades, we're going to go for some consolidation, actually. We're going to adapt the ultimate weight reduction upgrade for next season. We can do some upgrades. I could have done the ultimate fuel consumption upgrade, but really that's not going to give us too much performance, so I opted against it. I wanted to go for the ultimate brake upgrade, but I couldn't afford that either, so we're going to adapt some parts and make next season's car a little bit better. There is still the possibility that I could still stay at Ferrari next season. That is entirely possible, so I'm just leaving my options open and starting to think about Season 4 now. But I still do want to upgrade the brake package to really have no doubts about our strengths in this sport. But that's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching. I can only apologize about the results. No one is more upset about it than what I am. But the big thing is that we at least clawed back some points in the championship today against Lucas Weber. This is going to be a showdown. Hopefully, this is the start of many more wins on the horizon. Until the next race, the Russian Grand Prix, I'll see you next time.
win! Truly awesome! What a win! Well, that's not the best result for us. At least we got to the end of the race. See you in the garage.